Yeah. Wait, should we record this? Because I saw this on my feed and I was going to leave a comment and I saw your comment on it. And then I
Yeah.
didn't even end up leaving my comment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay.
When you start your business, no one ever prepares you for what's in store. So finding someone else who just gets it is sometimes the thing that can keep you pushing towards those big vision board business goals.
We're turning our Zoom coffee chats into a weekly unfiltered podcast. You always wanted to record them and repurpose them for content anyways. And that's on being a social media manager.
I'm Jessica Sheehy.
And I'm Madeline Daigan. And this is
hashtag
managed. I think it's perfect.
I like it. I like it.
Okay, now we have another little cute segment for you guys, which is tax talk, which is, funny play on a TED Talk. But we just have a few bullet points here where I think now you are going to get our real true Zoom coffee chat talk that Jessica and I, how we even started this podcast. So if you are new here, this is how we started it. So, and I feel like too, Jess, I feel like during tax season, and again, when I use the term tax season loosely, because for non-entrepreneurs, for non-solopreneurs, yes, this is your tax time, but bringing it back to what I previously said, where it's if you are a solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever, chances are you are paying your taxes 4 times a year. So actually, it's always tax season, essentially, around the clock.
You hated the one tax day or tax month that you got of the year. It's like what's that saying? You hated working a 9 to 5, so now you're
you're working
you work 24/7.
Yep.
Yeah, taxes were a pain before. Now you're not sure and you pay them 4 times a year. But we'll get into that. Yeah.
Clip that.
Literally. We'll get into that in just a minute because that is one thing that was a big learning curve for me to learn, and some thoughts around how to do that, how to prep for that. But now that I do and I'm in that mindset, it really, really pays off and makes you feel more comfortable, which brings me to my first point that I wanted to share on this podcast is how to shift your mindset around taxes if it feels so overwhelming. I just want to start off by saying you're not alone. This might be one of the most common things that entrepreneurs deal with, and also women, like Maddie mentioned, women in finance and money, we're oil and water, okay? It's gonna take time for society to really mold better, but I think as generations go on, we really are kind of advancing that conversation. But I think the biggest thing for me is, and I'm not saying I'm there in that mindset shift, but making the mindset shift of, okay, I have to pay taxes. This is, you probably come into becoming a solopreneur or first starting your LLC, your business, with, oh my gosh, there's all these expenses I have to pay. So much is going to go out the door. And now on top of it, I have to pay my tax payment. It's going to add to more stress. So first and foremost for me, that scarcity versus abundance mindset, easier said than done, and always a work in progress. I think I go through seasons of life. I think just as, okay, one moment I'm super abundant, the next it feels super scarce, and that's just super, I think that's natural in my opinion. You go through seasons of life. Some seasons are a little easier and some are a little harder, but you come out stronger on the other end. And knowing that, for me, it's one thing that I've always tried to remind myself is, and it is so true. It is. And I know now we're in tax time, where it's such a big conversation. If you hadn't paid quarterly payments, maybe you've got a really expensive tax bill right now. Wherever you're at, it's okay. More clients are coming to your business, more money is coming into your business. I know it doesn't seem like it now, and you're like, Jessica, stop. No, you're not. Don't say this. No, it's so true. It will happen. I know too, even 2025, very interesting economic year so far. I'm sure it will keep getting a little bit more interesting. But It's fine. Everything is fine. Like, everything will work out. It really will, in the way that it's supposed to. And I know that's easier said than done. Like I said, I'm still in this mindset shift. I don't think you ever grow out of it. I think the people you look up to, you're like, man, they got it all together. You look at like so and so with 5 million followers and so with 10 million followers, and you're like, dang, I bet they're making millions of dollars and they're fine. Like, okay, but if they're making millions of dollars, how much is their tax bill every single quarter? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's very relative in how you think about things. But I think first and foremost, start with the mindset shift. You're now stepping into employee mode to entrepreneur mode. And it's so different looking at taxes. And I think that mindset shift is the first thing that I would add.
That was so beautiful. Like that, I think you just healed a part of me. Like, just, I felt like you were seriously talking to younger us because, like, and like, piece of advice like that, because it is scary in the beginning. And I feel like, like, slower seasons now, I embrace them better because I'm just like, okay, like, yeah, it's uncomfy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, where do we need to work more, like, in social savvy, like, where, like, in the podcast, like, what, not saying that this is slow, see, I'm just saying in general, though,
Yeah.
where it's just like,
Yeah.
slow seasons don't have to be bad, like, negative, where I feel like,
Yeah.
maybe that's like that mindset shift too, where it's just like, slow season equals no money, no, like, bad, 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 which, yet again, coming back to, it's uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be a great thing in disguise.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I think that's one thing, unfortunately, Maddie and I started doing online business right before COVID, right before one of the most interesting times in the economy, and I'm sure we'll have more of those in our lifetime. Look forward to
Yeah.
that, but we'll all get through it together. But I think that really taught me, like, because there were times, especially during thinking back to COVID in 2020 that were really hard, were really scarce, but then there were times that were really, really abundant, and it was really, really high and really, really low. And that's just
Yeah.
entrepreneurship in general, but it was heightened. And, not to say we're in that same period right now, 5 years later in 2025, it feels very similar, where it does feel very high and very low. But I'm trying to lean into, okay, what does this mean? Because I'm also, 5 years later, I'm in a very different season of life. And so to me, I'm like, is this the universe's way of saying, like, we've got your back. Like, this is your time to slow down. So we're slowing you down because
I just
I'm a
got
work-
chills.
I'm a workaholic. Like, this is a conversation. You guys are like getting a real glimpse of like day-to-day conversations like Ryan and I have. Like, I'm a workaholic. I know I am. And every day we're talking about what my maternity leave's going to be. I think Ryan's got a little bet going on under the table of like what my maternity leave will look like. It's fine. And
If
again,
you ask him.
I won't know what it looks like until I'm in that moment. I'm very much an in the moment kind of gal, and that's one thing too, that mindset shift. That's where, and I hope this for you guys, however, whoever your partner is, or your support system, or your community, or your biz bestie, like, I hope you find that balance of someone to keep you level, and for you to keep someone else level, because it is really, really beautiful. And Ryan and I have these uncomfortable money talks all the time. We're becoming parents, so we have them pretty much every night. It's like, okay, we're not having dessert, we're doing money talk, preparing for the family. It's like, let's get very uncomfortable, but it is great. I do hope I can get out of this season to Maddie's point, be more comfortable with money, be more
Mhm.
financially literate, but we'll see. Who knows? But Ryan is already thinking about 2026, 2027, like what that looks like for like us and like our, soon to be family. And I'm thinking about April 2025. Maybe May if we're getting wild. But I just think very much in the moment. I think a big piece of that is I am a team leader. I am the leader of Social Savvy. We work with several clients. We have several things going on. So I'm so in the day to day. But all that to say, long story long, I think it's really important to think about things and have that shift. Like, again, business is business. Like, what do you, okay, this is a real side note, Maddie, but you know how people say business is personal? I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that. I think business is all about relationships, but I don't think it's personal. Like, I think business is business. I hope I explained that right.
No, I like that. I like that perspective
Yeah.
because I do. It is really like you could make it personal with the like just like let's say it's like you're in business with your family, but
Yeah.
again, that's still a relationship.
Right.
And no, I like that. I also okay, one more thing I want to add to like this mindset topic too. Like I'm just so proud of you, proud of us, like and I'm so honored that it's like I get to be like again, you guys, real like get out the tissue boxes, but like no, like this is real time because it's just like we don't know what like Jessica's a mom. We've never done this. We've never done this together. Like again, I'm not the pregnant one, but it's just like like where it's like our listeners. I know that we have people who are Maddie who aren't a mom yet, but like
Mhm.
plan on becoming moms, in the next few years. We have new moms. We have moms who have been moms for maybe a decade, more decades.
Mhm.
Um so I guess too, I'm just already thinking about like because my brain as we're recording this real time and like I'm envisioning this clip on social and just I'm calling it out now. Like I would love it if the moms, like whether you're a new mom, a soon to be mom, all of that, like what is your best piece of advice? Just when it comes to these hard conversations or again selfishly I think just in general, what is your best piece of advice as a mom? um but okay, yeah, so sorry, like
Yeah.
I think on that note, do we want to move to our next bullet point,
Yeah.
which is the biggest mistakes we made early on and how we fixed them. And I think for me, the biggest mistake, it might like shock you all, including you, is that I was like that 30%. Brennan had told me it, but wasn't staying on top of me to take it out. So yeah,
Mhm.
we did have a season where we had a high tax bill and it was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think my biggest mistake is that as well, which I'm glad I've already talked about it. I know we'll talk about a little bit like specifics, quarterly payments soon, but that and just like basic bookkeeping, which is so
Mm-hmm.
funny because if you guys know, when I first started college, I was like, "Oh, I took, what did I take? I don't know, basic accounting. I don't remember what the class is called, and I took like managerial accounting, and I was like, wait, I'm not so bad at this, but no, I was bad at it,
It wasn't creative enough.
right?
Imagine that.
It was like, no, but anyway, I think basic bookkeeping, and we'll talk about that in just a second, is also super important. And that's one thing where I am, again, we're in a slower season. So I'm like, how can I look at and analyze and like understand our numbers better? So if you're not tracking your numbers, go ahead, like start now. That's one thing. Start ASAP, because that was one thing that took me a while to really do. You know what? I'm just going to talk about the bookkeeping now because I just feel like it makes.
Wait, and I have one more thing. I actually have a mistake that I want to add on to that.
Okay, yes, add it.
I think too, I don't think we needed QuickBooks. I literally have an accountant husband, and I honestly think it was just an extra. I don't know. That may
Okay,
be a hot take,
I
but I don't think we needed it.
agreed. I will say Social Savvy has not had a QuickBooks in, I don't know, years. Like, I can't
Okay,
remember
yeah.
when we ditched it. I don't know,
Yeah.
2021, 2022.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, like, my husband works in data, has a finance degree, really works in marketing, but where his brain works and thinks is way more like analytical and through like financial data. And so he created spreadsheets that track everything. and it tracks and spits out automated reports beautifully. And so just a couple of weeks ago, I told him, like, hey, I think you should share this with the team, because he really loves doing it. And so I'm like, why don't you, like, because he's always like pulling together new reports and new data, and we're looking at, like, the way my brain works, I'm like, okay, let's look at our like client load and our revenue over the past couple years, and let's also put our website traffic on top of it. Let's put our like social media data on top of it. So that's where I like not using QuickBooks, because like Maddie said, I think it's an added expense. I don't think it's necessary unless you need a tool like that.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have someone to build you this kind of spreadsheet, or you don't think in spreadsheets, which Maddie and I don't blame you, because we don't personally, we don't build spreadsheets. That's where it could be a good expense.
And I would ask your tax again. I think the investment that you should make is literally like, instead of QuickBooks, go find yourself an accountant. Like, go find yourself a bookkeeper themselves, and like, because guess what? They may use QuickBooks, and like similar to social media. Again, I'm so sorry if there are tax accountants listening or like, what are you saying? But I'm hoping not. But where
get in our DMs, we'll give you a form.
Yeah, literally. Come for us. Like, correct me. But I think it's similar. How I view QuickBooks too is similar to like how we use like our social media platform tools. Like, who's to say accountant or like bookkeeper won't do the same thing,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, now go into your bookkeeping. Okay. I'm here. It's your stage.
Okay, so yes, so bookkeeping, I think it's so important to track your numbers and to track everything, to track everything that's being brought into your business. I think it's really important to know, even if you're like, I only work with a few clients or a handful of clients, tracking that income is super important. And on that note, if you have other streams of income, maybe you're thinking, I only have a few clients, but if you make affiliate sales, if you have passive income coming in, like you sell templates or you sell something, I like to track like management services. And then I like to track specifics, like, because we work with clients in social media, we work with email marketing, we work with both. I like to just be super clear. Like, what does that number look like every single month, income wise? Again, tracking other sales that are coming in, like, even if they're just $25 this week and $50 this week, like affiliate sales or course sales or template or whatever you're selling, track it. Super, super important to know the specific buckets that make up your income. Again, a tool that you would use, like a QuickBooks, or you work with an accountant, they will do this for you anyway. But if you're doing it on your own, this is just super important to track and understand. Next up, expenses. So tracking, like, do you pay anyone? Do you have any 1099 contractors? What are you paying yourself? Maybe that's a formula or whatever that you figure out at the end when you're looking at like your net income, which is totally fine. Thinking about how many services you pay for, tools, business education you pay for, what do you pay your accounting, what do you pay for your home office, your internet, your phone, whatever you're using, what do you pay for travel, and then is there anything like additional that kind of pops in as like a recurring expense, knowing how much that total expenses are, and then figuring out what that net income is every month from, again, income, expenses, net income, so how much you're actually making after your expenses take it out the door, and then figuring out every single month what your tax payment looks like. Because again, that's going to be quarterly, like we talked about, but knowing what that is every single month, knowing the numbers, and getting more accustomed with seasonality of your business. Maybe Q1 payments are more, Q2 payments are less. However that looks like, you could have tax estimates that are the same for every single month. Again, that'll look different come next tax time. Is there any leftover that you need to pay, or are you getting any back? It's going to look completely different. that's a conversation for you and your accountant that you're going to hire. But it's really important to kind of know those numbers. So I think bookkeeping is super, super important. Whether you're making $1,000 a month, $4,000 per month, $20,000 per month, I don't care how much money you're making.
Mm-hmm.
Start tracking now, because once you have these systems in place, as you're scaling, it's going to just make you feel better come tax time. So you do know that 30% that you need to save, because you're going to have to save it. So know
Mm-hmm.
now versus knowing later, and then you'll never get that scary tax bill in the mail that Maddie and I have received in the past. It's scary, but guess what? We survived. We're here. We're fine. We made it through. But start.
And I will say too, like with, I think staying on the topic or theme of, you know, being so for real, where money's uncomfortable to talk about, you know, maybe you listener too, just like us, like aren't financially literate of like where you want to be yet. But I can tell you from experience, like it's going to build your confidence, you know, like you don't know what you don't know. And I'm trying to remember, I don't have it in front of me, but there is a book that I want all of you. It's in my like books of like I can't stop talking about in the flow, which is my cycle syncing one. But there is this book that was written by a millennial woman, I should say, and it's like one of the first financial books that felt like I was seen. And I'm drawing a blank of the name. I'm going to scour my brain to try and figure that out before this podcast episode is over. If I don't, though, it will be in the newsletter, but I need you all to read it because, again, it's just, there's so many of those like bro financial books like that were written by, it is what it, like a white man, like that's what it is. And it's just, it hasn't been approachable, you know? So anyway, sorry.
Mhm.
That's long story short. That's just like a resource I want to share with you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, that would be good. Should we talk about like a few? I know we've talked about quarterly payments a lot, but like the one thing
yeah.
I wanted to add about quarterly payments is that, kind of going back to our water cooler, like you can
Mhm.
pay quarterly payments if you're like a contractor, if you're like a sole proprietor, or like if you're an LLC. So that's
Mhm.
like the one thing to know, like you can pay those payments no matter how your business is structured legally. And we can talk about that too. Like that's one of our like last points that we want to share as well. Um, but I think the best thing about quarterly taxes is, one, staying on top of your tax payment. So come tax time, you know, the real, which April 15th, you know, the real tax day that we all know and love as US citizens. Um, so you're not blindsided by a big tax payment when that happens, is super important. But as you know, we talked about the seasonality of business and the ups and downs. As your income increases or decreases or remains the same in the year, you can adjust your tax payment. So don't think like, let's say for example, Q1 and Q2, you made a lot of money. You're fully booked. Maybe you're overbooked. So you're paying higher tax payments based off that 30% of that income in those 2 quarters. Q3 comes around, and maybe a couple of clients have left. Totally fine. You're in a little bit slower of a season, and you're like, oh my gosh, I paid X amount of dollars in Q1 and Q2 when those payments were due to the IRS. I can't pay the same thing. You don't have to. It's all about the seasonality of your business. You'll pay less. Again, you'll pay that 30% based off of whatever income you did bring into your business.
Mhm.
So don't feel like you're getting yourself into a problem by doing quarterly tax payments. It's not a problem. Is it inconvenient to take that money that you're bringing in and disperse it? Yes, but you're running a business. So, yes, that's what happens when you run a business. You've got to pay all these people and pay all these things. So, I think that's what's super important. I think the other piece of that is paying quarterly payments. You can pay them directly to the IRS. There's other, I'm sure, tax systems that you can use to pay. I think for me, in my experience, this is where I was like, I'm hiring an accountant to help do this for me. And like Maddie mentioned, hiring them an expense, yes, but the peace of mind knowing that I'm paying this and it's done, and I don't have to do it. They've got it covered for me. They're the professional. Clients hire me as the marketing professional. I'm hiring that tax accountant as the financial professional. And I think it's so worth it.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that because that was perfect.
Okay, perfect.
I did figure out the book. So the book is
Okay.
called Deeper Than Money by Chloe Elise. Again, I'll have
Okay.
it, but it's just a good mindset. And like, I feel like when it comes to finances, you know, we as women, like we have a specific lifestyle we want to live. And I feel like all the books, sorry, this is again, justice. I feel like it is on topic, but like this was not in our little notes, but I have to say it. But she just, I feel like all the other books, you know, they're like, you cut out your lattes, cut like all this stuff, but it's like, and I think that's why we as women, or again, I'm speaking for myself, get scared because it's like we have this lifestyle we want to live, and she's just so kind, like in this, and shows you there's a lot of graphs and everything that she will be like, you don't have to cut it out, but just she kind of shows you. I like you mentioned too, like you mentioned the buckets, and she uses that terminology a lot in her book as well, where it's like you have your buckets, and just maybe again where just knowing where your money's going. And I think as women, again, I'm speaking as somebody with ADHD, and people with ADHD, we like very impulse spending. Like that is a thing. We're working on that. We're working on breaking that habit. But like, again, I share that with you all so that hopefully it resonates with you. Like you feel seen and you don't feel embarrassed, because it's just like, I've been there. I am you. And just, I want us to have more of these type of conversations so that we can be so for real with one another, and you feel comfortable enough to talk to us even on socials about it. But anyways, okay.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that advice. Okay, I think the last point, I know we've talked about this briefly, but I wanted to run through, like, should we talk just about like business structure just one last time? Like, let's rip the Band-Aid off before we close out this episode around what the heck does it mean? LLC, sole proprietor, S Corp, and yeah, should we run through that? I have a couple of like things about each
I'm
of.
like, oh,
Okay.
I don't.
Okay, so I also, forewarning, I could have done a little bit better homework as a podcaster to really prepare our journeys of going through these levels. So, full disclosure, I did not do that. Maybe if Maddie wants to annoy me for an Instagram graphic, I
was gonna say,
She's
I can also do my own yes.
She's like, I'm already adding this as a task on your Asana right now.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's start with sole proprietor. And I'm going to run through these quickly. Again, this is where I really feel like we've said it, and we're a broken record, it's fine. But like, hire that tax accountant to help you know this. So helpful, okay? So sole proprietor, this is a business that is owned and ran by one person. It's in the name. You're personally liable for all business debts and obligations, and the taxes are based off of that person's personal income because sole proprietor. I think it's pretty self-explanatory on what that is. The next level up would be an LLC. Now, again, this can get a little, I'm not going to go too deep in because I'm not super well versed in it. I think, again, great conversation for a financial pro. But an LLC is a structure that it is a different type of entity that can be taxed. So it's not a person, it's an entity, it's a company. And so again, this protects you from liabilities. So like any assets that you have personally, if you own property, if you have a lot of, if you have money, like if you have any assets whatsoever, it protects you if the business goes into debt or has liabilities like lawsuits or anything that could really arise from that. The profits of the business are what's taxed. And this is where, again, gets a little confusing. And just from my experience, I at one point set up Social Savvy as a sole proprietor LLC or sole member LLC. I think I just misspoke, so I'm sorry guys. I think sole member LLC, that's pregnancy brain. And so that's where, again, the taxation on the business profits, like what the business brought in, was what happened there. So next up is an S Corp or an S corporation. So I will say Social Savvy in 2025 is an S Corp. We make more money. We pay more things. I was also advised by my accountant to do this.
Yeah, no, I feel like the one thing I know, like those are like where it's like you get to a certain point. Again, this is me poorly explaining to how it was explained to me, but it's like once you reach this like one milestone,
Yes.
how Brenna was like, if the buzzing blonde ever becomes that, I'll let you know.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah. This is why you need that accountant in your life to tell you that. And so, again, it's the same. It's a little bit different in terms of what it is. It's still the liability is the same as an LLC. So again, the corporation is what really kind of holds the liabilities and the debts versus you as the business owner and whoever. And then again, taxes are a little bit different. So now that, and this is where, again, speaking from experience, and I do have someone who is an accountant. She is amazing. She's in the Tampa Bay area. So if anyone is listening in the Tampa Bay area and you want a recommendation, we
will share.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I will share with her. My financial advisor shared her with me, and Ryan and I have been working with her for several years, and we will never let her go. Even after we move to different states and different things, we will never let her go. So that is one thing that is for sure. And Ryan and I's favorite thing is if she's ever telling us about things we need to do or added things or things change or what have you, we're always like, can you just please tell us what this bill would be if you did it for us? Because we might have to weigh those pros and cons and we might have to pay your invoice. So we take our own advice, right? So anyway, those, again, very basic level of like business structures, but I think really important to figure out what works best for you. It's on a state-by-state basis. So again, between Maddie and I, we've lived in several states, but there are so many states that we have not. So find someone local to you. Find someone who does specialize, like Maddie said, in small business, maybe in an online business as well, that can be a little bit more modern and things. And yeah, we hope with our advice and what we did have to share that this episode was great. And if you want more tax content or more financial content, let us know, because we've got conversations with a few people going. And so if we tell them that there's some buzz, I don't know, might just fuel them a little bit more.
Yes. And if you did find this episode, if you've made it this far in this podcast and you found it helpful, we would so appreciate it if you wrote us a review, if you shared the podcast episode, if you followed us on socials. Like, this is what fuels us and keeps us going to keep sharing content like that. And we really appreciate you guys listening in, and we will catch you guys on the airwaves next week.
Listen up, social media managers, freelancers, and online business bosses. If you're still out here trying to Google your way to success, it's time for an upgrade. The #Manage Collective is a free Facebook group where we ditch the fluff and get real about what actually works in social media management, community, coaching, and resources. Because your ideal clients don't just magically find you. We're a group of 20,000 plus social media managers, and it's absolutely free to join us. So what are you waiting on? Join now at #manage.com/group. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, I think we've officially become internet besties. You can always call into the # hotline and say hello, leave a review, or ask your burning questions.
Make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening from. Subscribe to the Social Club newsletter for our weekly email, and shoot us a DM over at #Manage on Instagram, letting us know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.